For Charlie, Zhao Hao's approach is understandable. After all, everyone is an orphan, and most of them are helpless when they come out of the orphanage. Everyone wants to make some money to lay a foundation for themselves, because orphans are not like others. Others have parents, relatives, and a house that can shelter from wind and rain. Orphans have nothing. If you run out of money today, you won't be able to eat today, and you can only sleep on the street at night. The reason why Charlie didn't think about him after leaving the orphanage was mainly because of his father's teachings to him that year, which made him feel that he could live to be 18 years old. It was already the orphanage and Aunt Lena's kindness to him, of course. Find a way to repay. Moreover, this has a lot to do with Charlie's childhood education. In his childhood, Charlie was the young master of the Wade family from childhood. He received the education of Confucianism and classic Chinese studies. Therefore, in his bones, there is a kind of dedication spirit of ancient Confucianism and compassion. This is what makes him different from everyone in the orphanage. At this moment, Zhao Hao stepped forward with excitement, and said excitedly, "Charlie, my good brother, we haven't seen in a long time." Back then, he and Charlie slept in the shed on the construction site together, carried cement together and moved bricks together. The two supported each other and walked all the way for several years. Later, Zhao Hao saved tens of thousands, and met a girl he liked on the construction site, and followed that girl to Haicheng. After a few years of absence, Charlie couldn't help feeling a little excited, saying, "Zhao Hao, we haven't seen each other for 3 or 4 years. How have you been in Haicheng over the past few years?" When Zhao Hao heard Charlie's question at this time, he laughed and said, I am okay. Let's say, have enough food and clothing." Charlie asked again, "Where is the girl you met on the construction site? Are you two married?" "Hey!" A trace of sadness flashed between Zhao Hao's eyebrows, but he smiled indifferently. "Get married. It's been a relationship for 2 or 3 years, but this is not about marriage. I can't afford it." "What kind of gift? I can't afford to buy a house. The woman's parents look down on me, and they often blow the wind around her ears, and she won't look down on me when she listens to them," and then she broke off with me. Charlie frowned and asked, "When is this?" Zhao Hao smiled slightly and said, "Just last month." Charlie nodded and said, "It is her loss for not choosing you." After finishing speaking, he said, "By the way, I haven't asked you yet, aren't you in Haicheng? Why did you come to Orus Hill so quickly?" Zhao Hao smiled and said, "It's very coincidental that the unit arranged for me to come over for a business trip. I just arrived in the afternoon. I just got off the bus and saw that you were chatting in the group, and then I hurried over." Charlie asked curiously, "Aren't you doing business by yourself? Why did you work again?" Zhao Hao smiled bitterly, and said, "Business has been dry. How can the business be so good now? Especially in the past 2 years, the economic situation is not good, and it is not easy to do anything." After speaking, he looked at Claire and smiled. "Charlie, is this your?" Charlie nodded and said, "This is my wife, Claire." After speaking, he introduced Claire again. "Claire, this is Zhao Hao, my best friend in the orphanage." Zhao Hao smiled and said, "Charlie, you are really blessed. Your wife is so beautiful." Claire smiled and said, "Thank you." Zhao Hao nodded, and then pretended to complain to Charlie. "Charlie, you are not kind. You haven't taken the initiative to contact us for several years. After Aunt Lena suffered from uremia, I heard Aunt Lena say, you often visit her, but you avoid our brothers and sisters every time. Why?" Charlie smiled and said seriously, "The past few years have not been very good. I didn't want everyone to see it." Charlie also has self-esteem. Since marrying Claire, he has often been ridiculed by people, saying that he is a rubbish, a rag, and a live-in son-in-law. Although he is not surprised how people think of him, he does not want to let him be with him since childhood. These little friends who grew up together know their dilemma. Zhao Hao said seriously, "My dear brother, we lived in a shack on a construction site for a long time. A steamed bun can be broken in half and a person can break in half. Why are you embarrassed in front of me?" Brother, I've been unhappy in the past few years. Look at me, don't I still laugh every day? Charlie nodded slightly. At this time, Xiaofeng also looked at Zhao Hao with a smile, and said, Brother Zhao Hao, why don't you say hello to me?